if I perform a backward pull, I'm shifting the weight onto the back foot. I need stability on that leg because it becomes my weight-bearing leg. What do? I align my navel with the toes of that leg. So wherever the toes are pointing, I will turn my navel to align with the toes. That's what we do in the backward pull.
I feel like there, if you just try to remain straight and do it, and there's just nothing, like no.
That's how they do repulse the monkey in Tai Chi.
Just like
Some do turn.
Whoa, got some power behind it.
Some people do turn when they repulse their monkeys. But then the question is, which is the primary movement? Obviously, it's not the hand that performs the repulsive motion. It's the backward pull that is primary movement, because that's where the movement of center mass is going.
Yeah, there's a boulder coming with this, no play on boulder, but there's a boulder coming on this one. But this one is just
swinging your arm.
Yeah.
So that's actually hilarious, because in Tai Chi there is one of the maxims, or one of the principles, using the whole body power. But that's exactly what is missing in repulsing the monkey and many other Tai Chi moves. They're not using the whole body power, they're just using the swing of the arm or motion of the limb in whatever other direction. How would you maximize the use of the whole body power? You would also use the gravity to do all the work. Meaning, all you do is just simply start shifting the weight on the leg, but keep it up in the air. So you land on the foot only after you perform the backward pull. Yes, so backward pull and then land. If you land and then try to do the pull, you will be still resorting to using force instead of power. That's another really interesting idea, how to use power instead of force. I think Richard Dawkins wrote a book named Power versus Force. Yeah. He didn't teach anything like what we're doing. but
he would understand it.
But he would dig the idea, because we actually learn to embody this, not just talk about it, put it on the scale like he did. Most of what he did I don't particularly resonate with, but fine. And the principle is really cool. If you are doing the movement like this, it's a disjointed, compartmentalized movement.
Two moves.
Yeah. Even if you're doing it like this, and you land just a split second too soon, already energy drains into the ground through the foot, whether you're going backwards or forward or any other direction. So that's the timing. The timing ideally would be such that you deliver impact or project energy first, before the foot lands on the floor. For example, cloud hands. A lot of Tai Chi players move in the same direction with cross steps. I definitely don't condone that. But even if they don't cross step, but they do like a crab, like this, those natural steps. If the foot lands first, and then you do the movement that we call opening, or cloud hand, opening won't have any power. You will be resorting to using this muscle of the shoulder called posterior deltoid, which is not very well developed in most people in the first place. And then you also hinging the arm around the shoulder joint, meaning that's a pretty poor body mechanics if you think about it. The posterior deltoid is pulling the bone, but the bone is relatively long. And so you have actually disadvantageous leverage. And even if you do deliver impact into the target, what part of the elbow is going to hit the target? The back of the elbow, the meaty part of the elbow where triceps.
Funny bone. It's so funny when you hit it.
You basically are not going to be happy if you actually deliver a substantial impact. So what do? We bring the elbow to the right place, and then just simply use the whole body motion to project energy in that direction. Works like a charm, and has a lot greater power and greater efficacy. because you're using whole body power, using gravity force, the gravity to project energy instead of physical force in the muscle, and your entire bone structure is in alignment. That's basically what we want to develop as a result of our training. On a basic level, we work mostly with the bones. Bones represent the element of earth in the human body. The rest of the body is pretty much water, some fats, and proteins, but bones are representative of hard matter. Hard matter in the body, the skeleton, works to mitigate the effect of the other aspect of the element of earth energy, which is gravity. Instead of fighting against gravity, we really want to learn how to put gravity to good use. So if we're projecting energy, let's actually be friends with gravity. Let's use gravity to do all the work instead of fighting against gravity, or actually fighting against gravity is something that most people do even without any energy projection. It's just simply they're misaligned, they're crooked, they are unstable, so they're fighting against gravity. What would be an example of fighting against gravity? What we're talking about, for example, misalignment of the legs that lead to being less grounded. So if your legs, for example, are bow-legged, your legs are not really supporting you very well. When the bone structure doesn't support you well, something has to compensate for the lack of support. What would that be?
Your muscles.
Your muscles, which are never as strong as bones, and they burn energy, and then they become sore and stiff, develop energy blockages, which prevent the energy from flowing through your body or between your body and the ground. Basically, there are really few pros and a lot of cons to being tense. For example, if there is misalignment because there is more weight on one foot than the other foot, holding on. Well, when there is more weight on one leg, the pelvis obviously is going to be crooked. If you just hold your fingers by your hip bones and shift the weight onto whichever foot you want to shift weight on, notice how the weight-bearing side becomes higher. If you go to the other side, that respective side rises. If one side of the pelvis is higher than the other, it means the pelvis is not level. It's slanted slightly. And the sacrum, which is part of the pelvis, is not going to be upright. It's going to be slanted along with the rest of the pelvis. Now, sacrum is also the foundation of the spine. If the foundation is crooked, do you think the spine is going to be aligned? Oh no. The spine is going to get crooked because if you keep it aligned, you will fall over sideways. So what is the body going to do? It's going to tense up the muscles of the weight-bearing side. If the lumbar spine follows the tilt of the sacrum, the muscles will torque or twist or bend the spine in such a way that the thoracic spine, the part of the spine where the ribs go, tilts in the opposite direction, rising the opposite shoulder usually. So if there's more weight on one leg, the opposite shoulder tends to be higher. Whichever shoulder is higher, that's usually the shoulder where there's going to be more tension. Why is there more tension on the shoulder that's higher?
Because that's what's keeping it higher.
That, plus, notice how the lower shoulder allows the arm to just hang loose.
Relax.
That one, relaxed. That one is not so relaxed. It's kind of jacked up, and also the muscles are stretched. And we know by now that stretched muscles are not happy muscles. What happens? It's going to be tension, almost universally. There's going to be also tension in the trapezius. There's also going to be tension in the QLs on the weight-bearing side. There's going to be obviously more tension in the leg muscles of the weight-bearing leg. And the neck tilts usually towards the higher shoulder, completing the S curve. Basically, we give ourselves a little bit of scoliosis. If it becomes habituated, then the person actually can be very easily diagnosed with scoliosis, because that's how they hold themselves all the time. Even if you get them to lie down on the floor or on a massage table, they will lie crooked. And often, they don't comprehend how crooked they are. So you ask them to lie down, they lay down like this. And you say, well, do you feel like you're lying straight? You're like, probably not. Well, can you straighten yourself up? Sure. You literally have faulty proprioception. They basically think that they're crooked in the wrong way. When they look in the mirror, they can probably get it. But most people don't really pay attention to their misalignments. And so what happens is that they often tend to stretch that part of the body that is tense. We know that it's the tense one because it's already been stretched. So they basically add insult to injury. For example, a lot of people have misalignment of the neck. Let's say they hold up or they hold down. Whichever way they hold themselves, there's going to be some tension in the neck. For example, if I hold down, obviously the weight of the head is not resting on the bone structure of the neck, the cervical spine. The weight is pretty heavy. The weight of the head is pretty substantial. What do you think it weighs?
10?
Pardon?
Pounds?
In kilograms, pounds, whatever you do.
Kilos.
Well, so to help you out, it's like the bowling ball. The heavy bowling ball is about 12, 13 pounds, or about 6 kilos. Essentially, that's the weight of the bowling ball sitting on top of the finger. The cervical spine is relatively thin, about the thickness of a finger. So what happens? If the bowling ball is not in alignment or sitting on top of the neck structure, the structure of the cervical spine, something has to compensate for this misalignment. See how the bowling ball sitting on top of the fingertip, out of alignment, will require a tremendous amount of effort from the finger to keep supporting it, right? Yeah, like imagine the bowling ball, you stick the finger in it, and instead of keeping it straight, tilt it. How much effort is it going to require? A lot. Well, that's what happens with the neck muscles. Obviously, neck muscles are stronger than the muscles of the finger, but it gives you an idea how much tension they have to hold. Over a period of time, no wonder people get stuck in their heads. Because the tension in the neck literally blocks the circulation of Qi, as well as blood flow and communication. So what happens is that people literally get stuck in their heads. They usually don't get stuck in their bodies. They get stuck in their nuggets because they also comprehend things that they perceive through the organs of perception in their heads. By and large, eyes, ears, nose, mouth, maybe skin, tactile, but still, the rest of the body still has skin, obviously can move, kinesthesia. Those are much less developed than most people. Most people don't have kinesthesia as part of their vocabulary, so they don't pay any attention to it. So the sixth sense that we all have is kind of missing in action. Or most people don't develop that sixth sense because they don't even know they have it. We're all hardwired for proprioception, for perception of movement and pressure and the positioning of different parts of the body in relation to each other. Most people don't pay attention to it. Why? Monkey see, monkey do. If nobody else around us pays attention to kinesthesia, nobody is going to be thinking about it, therefore nobody is going to learn to pay attention to it. And that's how we basically rob ourselves of the first-hand experience of life. Because there is no life without movement. Now you can listen to movement, you can look at movement happening. Maybe you can even feel the movement with your skin, but these are things that are happening outside of you. It's a second-hand experience. To experience life fully, we want to experience the flow of life force within our bodies. In order to do that, we need to develop a perception and kinesthesia. So the sixth sense basically allows us to experience life firsthand instead of secondhand. Now, how profound is that? It's freaking profound because it literally transforms the experience of being alive. if the person experiences being alive firsthand, he starts experiencing their life totally differently. And that newly discovered experience of life firsthand is something that we learn to appreciate in Qi Dao, to hone it, to treasure it, and also to put it to good use. So basically, a lot of our practices are going to be dedicated to developing kinesthetic awareness and awareness of movement. And one of the things that result from that is development of different culture movement. So after a little break, we'll dive into exploration of harmonious culture movement. Before break, feel free to ask me any questions. Do you have any questions about anything that we explored so far today?
All the discussion. Yeah, kind of a little question. When you're standing like this, it's easy to stay centered on kidney too. So you just divide, is it just awareness? When you're like this, you go the centering on the prominent foot, the weight bearing foot?
The answer is yes.
Yeah. Don't even think about dividing that. Do you know what I'm saying?
You will be dividing. You're not bringing 100% of the weight onto the front foot.
So whatever amount of weight, percentage of weight you got here is the percentage is centered and set that foot in.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you have 50-50 distribution. Bring 50% of the weight on one, kidney two, the other kidney two. If you have 40-60, great. 40 on the center.
That matches you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, I'm not training how to be like a robot and be like perfectly like a line here and oh you deviate, oh that's bad. It's more like you want to develop a sense of benefit of alignment. So when you need it really, you quickly align yourself. When you don't need it, oh let's not fret about it. Let's not get too dogmatic. You always have to be perfect alignment because it's just going to drive you nuts. But when you develop that appreciation and sensitivity to how much power you have here as compared to here or here, suddenly you will be constantly noticing the feedback. I have more power here, I have less power here. What do I do about that? Oh, I can orient myself. So you basically adjust according to feedback if it makes any difference. It makes a lot of difference in most situations in life, but not 100%. So for example, if I lift a cup of tea, maybe it's slightly off my center line, it's not going to make a big difference because it's very light. For example, if I'm operating a car and the steering wheel is off center line, that's going to be tremendously dangerous and lead to car accidents all left and right because I don't have very good control of my center line. Or even simple things like using computer mouse. A lot of people develop what they call computer mouse syndrome, where the shoulder of the arm that uses the mouse the most becomes excessively tense. Why is it tense? Exactly. Most people use the mouse way off center line. Of course, if it is done for hours during the day, 5 days a week or whatever, it's going to create a massive degree of tension in the shoulder.
That's probably why I don't like mine, or most. I
Right.
don't use one. You know,
Yeah.
when it comes to think about it.
So what do we do about it? We bring the mouse pad on the center line. And then we can use it also with either hand. So that each hand can do only 50% of the work. You distribute the workload between the two arms instead of giving 100% of it to one. Obviously, it will require some degree of ambidexterity, which I hope you don't mind developing because it's a great skill to have. And you're going to be also operating at much greater degree of precision and less tension in your body. So over time, you're not going to develop mouse arm syndrome on both shoulders. Most likely, you're going to have none. Who would want to have mouse arm syndrome on one side and then switch to the other side and do the same thing and screw yourself up on the other side too. No, we basically do it so that we develop no mouse arm syndrome because you're doing it on center line. Everything is easy when it's done on center line. Some people say, wait a moment, but how about the keyboard? That's where the keyboard is supposed to be. I say keyboard goes on the keyboard tray. Most modern desks have keyboard trays. If yours doesn't have it, invest $50, $70 into a keyboard tray that you can screw, like a aftermarket type of addition to a desk. Attach it to the desk from below. You have a keyboard down on the keyboard tray. Mouse on the mouse pad. Nice alignment. Everything is working great. Also, keyboard down here works a lot better in terms of alignment of the forearms. Because you don't want to have the keyboard over here. And as you know, keyboard actually also screws your hands in a way that you develop. Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's the position of the hands that is considered the ergonomic position. If they're doing this kind of typing, it's not quite ergonomic. But most keyboards are just straight rectangles. There are some that look like boomerangs, and those are ergonomic. And also, ideally, it would be slightly slanted so that you're not holding up. It's so funny because nowadays there are keyboards that are like Wi-Fi keyboards, and they have little legs. Maybe non-Wi-Fi keyboards have legs too, I don't know. I don't use a keyboard actually. But they have legs on the wrong side of the keyboard. They tilt the keyboard towards you. Yes. When they actually need to tilt you away from you. That is the ergonomic positioning of the wrist, not that.
Okay, so I was understanding you. Yeah.
Yes, if you keep your hands like this all day long, you're going to develop carpal tunnel syndrome. No wonder companies invest millions of dollars nowadays into replacing non-ergonomic keyboards with ergonomic ones. But still not enough if we work for ourselves, especially we don't have a company who would give us the ergonomic keyboard, so we have to do it ourselves. And what we do is we basically learn how to pay attention to alignment of hands, wrists, fingers, everything basically working the way that it's supposed to. It's kind of a simple idea that we integrate in our daily lives if we just simply recognize how much of our daily lives activities are stereotypical or we take them for granted, like we don't think, is this the most effective way to do it? Getting this kind of creative mind going basically is what in Zen is referred to as the beginner's mind. But also, we all go through the stage of development when we're children. At the age of 2 or so, children ask questions. What kind of questions do they ask the most? Why? Those are great questions to actually keep asking because most of the answers, as you discover, are not particularly sensible. And so often we discover that there are better ways to do things if we continue asking these questions and experimenting and discovering that maybe there are better ways to go. I suspect, for example, that it would be great to have some kind of keyboard where you could hold your hands this way. Anatomical position of the hands. Instead of turning the arms backwards, you could tap from below. I don't know exactly how to make it visible and how to keep the keyboard from falling on the ground. Maybe Velcro it to the bottom of the desk or something. But basically it would actually be much more ergonomic than this. I even drive a car. When I drive a car, I hold the steering wheel from below. In all driving schools, they tell their students to hold the steering wheel from above.
Yeah.
But that instantly changes the position of the arms and shoulders. If you touch my shoulder muscle, notice how it has tension. Try it. Keeping arms this way causes tension on the shoulder. Notice this. Holding the steering wheel from below requires no tension on the shoulders. Also, it changes the alignment of the whole spinal structure. If you're holding the steering wheel like this, notice what happens to my head. And most people, when you look at them, when they drive their cars, they don't even touch the headrest of the car seats with the back of their heads. Even though the headrest is supposed to do exactly that. It's where you rest your head. Just like armrests, they're supposed to be where you rest your arms.
Not just for a car accident, okay?
So, yeah. So
I understand. That's why they did it, because with tension, then you're supposed to get reflects that you're paying attention, because you're really tense and all that. If you're too relaxed,
also it causes road rage and stress.
Fall asleep.
Well, but you actually are much less likely to waste energy when you're relaxed. Most people, so there's some truth to that. Most people don't know how to be relaxed and awake. It's just like they develop certain stereotypes that if the body is relaxed, it means it's time to sleep. And so that's why we're talking about people don't know what to do with themselves when they're relaxed. If they yawn, they often associate it with sleepiness or time to snooze. When actually it's just simply a natural way for a body to relax.